Welcome to our video series, The Savvy Submitter's Guide to Issues, Resolutions, and Principles, which will assist PTA advocates with their submissions. This is part one of the series, which is an overview of the Washington State PTA legislative platform to help you understand the big picture of our advocacy work, as well as to help you determine what type of submission you should do based on your topic of interest. Part 2 will go into more detail about legislative issues. Part 3 will cover resolutions. Part 4 will address legislative principles, and Part 5 will cover the steps after you submit, as well as submitter responsibilities. Washington State PTA has been advocating for children since 1905. At the state level, some recent advocacy successes include simple majority for levies, breakfast after the bell, raising the age for tobacco to 21, and more. You can be a part of this advocacy effort too. Advocacy is the act of arguing in favor of something, such as a cause, idea, or policy. You can advocate for change with your school leaders, your school district administration, your PTA members, or even your county or state legislators. We are a grassroots advocacy association, and our advocacy success depends on informed and engaged members just like you. If you want to see change in your community, then you need to advocate for it. Individual PTA members, local PTAs and councils in good standing, and Washington State PTA committees can all advocate for change by submitting legislative issues, resolutions, and legislative principles for our association's consideration. PTA advocates for the health, safety, well-being, and education of children and youth. So where can you and your PTA influence change? Here are just a few examples. Every community has different needs and faces different challenges. A community can be a school building, school district, city or town, or the entire state. What's important to your community? Let's learn how you can participate in our legislative platform to advocate for change. The Washington State PTA legislative platform needs to be flexible enough to address issues at all levels: local, school district, county, state, and federal. Therefore, it is made up of long-term positions and our short-term platform. Legislative principles are broad conceptual policy objectives that align with our mission and are the foundational basis for our overall platform. Legislative principles can be submitted, amended, or retired each year at Legislative Assembly. The full list of legislative principles can be found on the Legislative Principle page of our website. Resolutions are positions that guide our work from the local to the state level, are usually broader in scope than legislative issues, and generally have a call for action. Resolutions guide the advocacy work of Washington State PTA and our local PTAs and councils with all levels of policymakers. Resolutions can be submitted, amended, or retired each year at Legislative Assembly and Convention. The full list of resolutions can be found on the Resolutions page of our website. These long-term positions are permanent unless amended or retired by our membership. Our short-term platform consists of legislative issues. These are statewide positions that will receive the focus of our advocacy efforts in Olympia and are considered at Legislative Assembly each year. Legislative issues adopted in even-numbered years are ranked into a top 5 and remain on the short-term platform for 2 years, mirroring the 2-year legislative cycle in Olympia. In odd-numbered years, such as 2021, legislative issues can be added to the short-term platform, but issues are not re-ranked and are added to the Also Supported list. The current 2-year issue platform can be found on the Advocacy page of our website. The life cycle of an issue, resolution, or legislative principle begins when they are submitted. The next step is when first the Advocacy or Resolutions Committee and then the Washington State PTA Board of Directors review the submissions to ensure they align with PTA vision, mission, and goals. Submissions are scored against a checklist which can be found on the website before being approved to move forward to the delegates at Legislative Assembly and Convention for resolutions. After they have been reviewed and the information has been communicated to members, voting delegates at Legislative Assembly or Convention debate and vote on the submissions. During the legislative session, the Advocacy Committee and the Washington State PTA Legislative Consultant work together when reviewing current legislation that aligns with our legislative platform and determine which bills to support or oppose. You want to advocate for change. Now what? The first step is figuring out your topic and what change you want to accomplish. It may be something that has been on our platform before, or it may be a completely new topic that needs our attention. Consider your personal passion, the remedy you want to address the issue, whether the topic is bipartisan, and if the topic has a broad base of support. The second step is to determine the level of advocacy needed. If advocacy is only needed at your local level, this is best suited for a resolution at your local PTA or council, and you can find more information about creating a strong resolution in Part 3 of this series. If, however, the topic is statewide in scope, you should consider submitting a proposal to Washington State PTA. Step 3 is to determine the best type of proposal. Is your topic best addressed by a legislative issue, resolution, or legislative principle? If the topic is one where we hope to see activity and action in the next legislative session and will require us to focus our volunteer resources in Olympia, then you should submit a legislative issue. If the topic will take long-term advocacy to accomplish, then you should submit a resolution, which are broader in scope than legislative issues and may not have specific policy or legislation in Olympia we can focus on. If the topic is more of a conceptual policy objective that aligns with our mission, you should submit a legislative principle. If you are still unsure of what to submit, take a look at the website to see our current legislative principles, resolutions, and issues. This will give you an idea of how topics best fit in our platform. For further questions, please reach out to the Washington State PTA Advocacy Director. After you have determined the kind of proposal you want to submit, it is time to research. You must have facts and evidence to support your proposal and to substantiate your statements. Once you have your proposal ready to go, you will need to submit it per the instructions and by the required deadline. On the website, you will find instructions, submission forms, and the checklists used by the advocacy and resolution committees to review all submissions. If you plan to submit a legislative issue, please watch Part 2 of the series for more information. If you plan to submit a resolution, you can skip to Part 3 or Part 4 if you plan to submit a legislative principle. Thank you for being part of our advocacy team.